What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video. Now, in today's video, we'll be covering TOEFL integrated writing. So please copy the note-taking diagram, take out your notebooks, and grab your writing utensils. The R stands for the reading's opinion. 1, 2, and 3 stand for the reading's first, second, and third reasons, okay? Plus the major details. Now, don't forget that after the 3 minutes of reading time, you should be able to write everything that the reading wants to express, okay? So basically, you should have all of these details organized in your head, okay? They don't have to be in complete sentences in your notes, but in your minds, you should already have a really good idea of the kind of sentences that you're gonna actually type. Understand? Okay, so let's go to my laptop and look at the reading passage together. All right, so here's the reading passage. Let's start looking at the introduction's last sentence. The evidence points towards humans as the reason why birds are slowly but surely being eradicated. Okay, so the reading's opinion is that countless birds have gone extinct and are becoming endangered due to our actions. Now, I got the endangered part here, and are disappearing. I mean, if birds disappeared, they went extinct, right? So that's how I was able to paraphrase the information that we just got from that last sentence, okay? So the topic is whether or not many species of birds are disappearing because of human activity. Now, I decided to write many species of birds in this sentence because I'm going to write just birds here. And we're able to use disappearing without feeling any sense of guilt because we were able to paraphrase and write have gone extinct and becoming endangered. Okay, so the lecturer's opinion is the opposite of the reading's opinion. So the lecturer is going to argue that birds did not disappear because of humans, okay? Okay, now let's move on to the first body paragraph. Humans are expanding urban areas where they mostly live, so they are encroaching on birds and other creatures' natural habitats. Almost half of the world's population lives in urban centers of some sort, and green areas are low on the priority list in most places. Coupled with urban sprawl are the increased amounts of pollution. Okay, I think that's all we need. Okay, so the reading is basically saying that humans have killed a lot of birds because we built cities to expand the areas where we can reside, which kind of makes sense. However, because we have done so, we robbed birds of their homes and even contaminated the environment because of the pollution that we created. Okay, so that's just me improvising, and this is the sentence that I'm actually going to type in my essay. Humans are taking away birds' natural habitats as most of the people in today's world reside in cities, which replaced birds' homes and create tons of pollution that adulterate the environment. So adulterate is a synonym of contaminate, okay? All right, so what I want you guys to do when you're reading the reading passage for 3 minutes is just paraphrase, just change the grammar structure, okay? So if the reading wrote 2 sentences, find a way to make that become one sentence. And if the reading wrote one really long sentence, maybe it would be a good idea to split it up into 2 sentences, okay? So that's the first stage of paraphrasing. Just change the sentence or grammar structure, okay? All right, so this is what I'm going to type for the reading's first body paragraph. Okay, now let's move on to the second body paragraph. As Earth's population grows, there is an ever-increasing demand for food, so a lot of land is being cleared to make farmland to produce this food. Large tracts areas of forested areas are being cleared to grow crops on, and there is little thought given to the fate of the birds who nest in these forests. Okay, that's all we needed. That's even too long. Okay, now let's see what I'm going to type. A massive amount of trees and forests are being cleared for agriculture, for farmland, for farming, thereby placing numerous species of birds in danger due to the incessantly increasing demand for food and the Earth's population. Okay, so I definitely changed the sentence structure quite a bit. So I added the ever-increasing demand for food and the ever-increasing Earth's population at the end, okay? And I was able to do that because I added due to, all right? Now, let's take a look at the last body paragraph. Farmers often rely upon chemical insecticides to eliminate any insect infestations. These chemicals are also killing many birds as well as other animals. This is one reason the insecticide DDT has been banned for almost 40 years in the United States. Unfortunately, in the rest of the world, DDT and other powerful chemicals are still being used. Okay, that's all we needed. Now let's see how I'm going to paraphrase that. Farmers are using chemical insecticides to prevent insect infestations, but these substances, okay, so these substances would be the chemical insecticides, but these substances actually wreak havoc on birds and other animals. For instance, a chemical insecticide called DDT has been banned in America for about 40 years, but it is still used in other countries. Okay, now, since we're done looking at the reading passage and since we now know the exact sentences I'm going to type in my sample essay, let's listen to the lecture.
Many people have noted that large numbers of birds are endangered. But, don't worry for the overall situation. It's not as nearly as dire as it's often made to appear. Birds may be found everywhere, and some reports even suggest that their numbers are increasing rather than declining. Let me give you a few examples as to why you shouldn't worry. Many people live in urban areas these days, yet they want their cities to be as green as possible. Parks, playgrounds, and tree-lined rivers and streams are appearing for all to enjoy. Take Berlin, for example. At times, you can't even see any buildings because of all the trees, and birds are making the most of these areas. While pigeons are not the most beautiful of birds, New York City is famous for them. Birds are clearly adapting to life in the cities. While the increase in agriculture may be destroying some bird habitats, farmland doesn't cover Earth's entire surface, not by a long shot. Massive forests still stand in Canada, Russia, Brazil, Southeast Asia, and many other places. And agricultural methods are more developed, so the land is much more productive. This means less land is needed to produce the same or greater amount of food. No one disputes that insecticides kill birds. However, many recent crops have been genetically engineered to resist disease and insects, so insecticides are being used less and less. Outside the U.S., some harmful chemicals like DDT are still used, but they are utilized to kill mosquitoes, not for insects on farms. After the ban on DDT, deaths from mosquito-borne malaria leaped. So governments decided a few bird deaths were worth risking if they could save the lives of humans instead.
All right, now, if you guys still have not noticed, the difference between a lecture that's difficult to follow and a lecture that's kind of easy to follow is how redundant the professor was. For this lecture, the level of difficulty wasn't too high and it wasn't too low. It was right in the middle because the professor sometimes mentioned what the reading passage had to say, okay? And that's how the professor was redundant from time to time. So basically, if you notice that the professor is touching on information that the reading had, then ignore it because it's being repeated for no reason. Now, let's take a look at the lecture's opinion. The professor said that birds can be found everywhere and that their numbers are actually increasing rather than decreasing. So, people don't have to worry, okay? Now, I'm going to definitely spice that sentence up a little bit more when I'm actually typing my essay. Okay, now, for the first argument, the professor said that many people do live in urban areas, but they still want their cities to be as green as possible. Now, the word green in this context means environmentally friendly, okay? For example, in Berlin, people cannot see the buildings from time to time because of all the trees. Plus, New York City is famous for having a large number of pigeons. Therefore, it's clear that birds are adapting to cities, okay? All right, now in the second argument, the professor said that farmland does not cover the Earth's entire surface. For instance, there are still massive forests in Canada, Russia, Brazil, Southeast Asia, and other countries. Besides, agricultural methods have developed as time passed. So, less land is needed to produce the same amount or a greater amount of food. Okay, now let's move on to the last argument. The professor said that recent crops have been genetically engineered to resist diseases and insects. So, insecticides are being used less and less. Plus, other countries use DDT to kill mosquitoes because after the ban on DDT, deaths from malaria increased. Hence, the government considered that saving human lives is more important than not using DDT. Okay, so guys, that's basically what I'm going to write in my sample essay. So now let's go over to my laptop and read what I have written down. Please keep in mind that I'm always concerned about trying to spice things up and writing complete sentences, okay? If your sentences have any weaknesses, any flaws, then those are reasons for points being deducted from your overall score. So please do not forget to be responsible writers and speakers, okay? All right, let's go. All right, I just finished typing my sample essay, so let's look at it together. Now, in today's video, I'm only going to read out loud the sentences that I organized from the lecture, okay? So for this video, what you're going to have to do is pause the video from time to time to read the entire paragraphs on your own, okay? All right, so let's start from the lecturer's opinion. On the other hand, the listening adamantly delineates that because birds of all shapes and sizes can still be found everywhere in today's world and their numbers are actually increasing rather than decreasing, people do not need to worry too much. Okay, now let's move on to the first argument. Nonetheless, the lecturer offsets these points by declaring that even though the majority of Earth's population lives in urban areas of some sort, most people still want their cities to be as green as possible. For example, in Berlin, it's nothing short of impossible to see buildings in some areas because of the amount of trees. Plus, New York City is famous for having countless pigeons. Needless to say, it's pretty clear that birds have successfully adapted to urban areas. Okay, now, when it comes to organizing the lecture's information, it becomes paramount to catch all of these examples, okay? So your thought process is going to be the complete opposite for the lecture. For the reading, you're trying to skip over these specific details, whereas for the lecture, you're trying to catch all of these specific details, okay? All right, now let's move on to the second argument of the lecture. The professor in the lecture further points out that farmland doesn't cover Earth's entire surface. To illustrate, there are still massive forests in Canada, Russia, Brazil, Southeast Asia, and many other countries. Besides, owing to the fact that, so that's a nice word for because. Keep that in mind. Owing to the fact that agricultural methods have developed by leaps and bounds as time passed, less land is needed to produce the same or greater amount of food in the 21st century. So, in the 21st century, this little phrase completes the sentence, okay? That's what I'm talking about in terms of complete and flawless sentences, okay? So please be responsible writers. All right, now let's move on to the last argument. The speaker in the listening counters these indications by insisting that recent crops have been genetically engineered to resist diseases and insects on their own. Therefore, insecticides are naturally being used less and less these days. Moreover, DDT is currently being utilized in other countries to kill mosquitoes. Both of these spellings are acceptable, okay? Because deaths from mosquito-borne malaria increased after the ban. Simply put, governments deem that saving human lives is more important than preventing the use of DDT. Okay, guys. Now, please, don't forget that it's your responsibility to study my sample essays. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that just about wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed the sample essay, drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you still have not done so. Share my channel with your close friends and family members if they need the extra assistance. And if you do have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. The next video will be covering TOEFL independent speaking questions. So if those questions are challenging for you, stay tuned and be sure to check out the next video. Oh, and if you are a self-disciplined and dedicated individual, reach out to me about my tutoring services. Let's get the score that you need and deserve. Peace out.